This Tumblr post is an anonymous question a blog received, followed by some replies from various bloggers. I think the whole thing is worth sharing. The original blog that the Anon sent a message to was Girls from Mars. Anonymous said, "Oh, so just fuck women of color, huh? Think about all the women of color that are sex workers and owe their success to sex work. Cardi B, Summer Walker, and more. Yeah, cultures that aren't white don't believe sex is bad or dirty. Hard to believe? They're not white Puritans like you. Christ, TERFs are really just white feminists, LMFAO." Girls from Mars answered, "Consider that ethnic minority women are probably overrepresented in sex work because poverty is racialized, not because sex work is empowering or gains you a lot of respect from society. I myself am from a country where prostitution is completely legal, the Netherlands, and half of the prostitutes in Amsterdam are immigrant women from Eastern European who don't even speak Dutch. They're not empowered. They are thousands into debt due to their pimps and can't leave prostitution given that they can't speak the local language. How could they possibly find a job anywhere? During the 90s, most prostitutes in Amsterdam were sex-trafficked women from Southeast Asia and West Africa. Most of their clients, however, were white men. Ask yourself who is in power here. Being against prostitution as a feminist has nothing to do with a Puritan Christian sense of morality. It simply means being against the exploitation of women, a lot of whom are not white, by the way. In Germany, some prostitutes can't even locate their current location on a map of Germany, according to one study. But I'm sure these immigrant women are super empowered and totally in control of their sexuality. I don't look down upon the prostitutes. I look down upon the men who rape them, many of whom have a girlfriend or a wife at home, by the way. If a 40-year-old man... Ooh, that, that sounds like the OP is implying that they can just rape the woman at home, but that's not what they're saying. It's a commentary on cheating. So yeah. Okay, let's continue. If a 40-year-old man is dating a 22-year-old, we find it creepy. But if he has sex with a 22-year-old prostituted woman, suddenly it's A-okay and not creepy at all. I really don't believe this is a cultural difference, considering that it's liberal Western countries that have legalized prostitution, for example, Germany and Holland, and Australia, by the way. It's actually Iceland, a country praised for its gender equality, that has outlawed strip clubs. It's Norway and Sweden, two more countries known for their gender equality, that have outlawed buying sex from prostitutes. Consider that something isn't inherently progressive just because it happens in non-Western countries. User Turf Bangs replied, "Letting women of color be oppressed for the pleasure of a white man's penis is not even white feminist, it is white male supremacy." The Tumblr user Sailor Hater replied, "Anon really saw two impoverished black women who worked as strippers to fucking survive before becoming famous and made the dumbest possible conclusion. Summer Walker does not owe her success to sex work. She owes her success to her goddamn musical talent. Same with Cardi B. She is famous for being a rapper. She does not owe her success to stripping. Stripping is very looked down upon in the black community as well, so miss me with that 'in cultures that aren't white' bullshit. Some black men refuse to even listen to Cardi because of her past as a stripper. The fact that you think it's any less dehumanizing for a black woman to be humiliated on stage than it is for a white woman really speaks to how much you value black women. There is a common historical myth that African cultures were inherently more sexual than European cultures because they dressed provocatively. Obviously, African people wore less clothes because it's fucking hot, but this myth was used to promote so many harmful stereotypes about black women being hypersexual and were used to justify rape and even let white men claim that black women couldn't physically be raped. Stop using black women as a token for your sexist rhetoric." And the last reply is from Unhinged Cher Horowitz, who says, "Think of all of the talented singers and entertainers who should have been supported and have their talents nurtured in safe music schools, but who were economically unstable and turned to sex work and got lost in a sea of exploitation, drugs, abusive relationships, and emotional trauma." For my own comment here, radical feminist critique of quote-unquote sex work, stripping, prostitution, pornography, etc., is not about purity. It's not about morals in the way that people think. Certainly, I suppose one could argue it is a little bit about morals in the sense that men who buy women as human beings should have some kind of a moral sense indicating to themselves that this is not appropriate. But we know that they don't. So radical feminist critique of sex work in whatever form it happens to come in is not about morality and purity. It's about finding a huge problem with the exploitation of female bodies for money. It's about, like many of the people in the quotes or the reblogs we just read, about primarily wealthy white men exploiting women. It's about exploitation. In order for something to be empowering, it has to provide you power. It has to provide you power and status. And sex work may provide money for lots of people, lots of women, but it doesn't change the status of women as a whole. It doesn't even change those individual women's statuses. Receiving money is not necessarily power, especially when it's received via exploitation. This is not a commentary on sex workers, because certainly we know many of them are doing the best they can, or they feel that they have no other options, or maybe they really do have no other options. When radical feminists talk about sex work in a critical way, it is never about the women involved in sex work, and it is entirely about the practice as a whole and the exploitation that comes in that industry from men.